And for more on Saskatchewan's decision, we are joined by the province's Premier, Brad Wall. Premier, thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.
So is Saskatchewan determined to go ahead with a study then?
Yes. The short answer is yes. We are going to take our cue from the research community in this regard. And I can tell you, since the announcement was made yesterday, my office has been receiving calls, has continued to receive calls from those who were in the middle of preparing plans for or proposals for clinical trials. These trials are happening in North America. They're happening in the Buffalo area. And because we have such a high incidence of MS, unfortunately, in our province, the highest in the country, in a country that has a high incidence of MS, I think it is incumbent on us to help answer some questions here, including if the answer is no, this is not the right thing to do. And so we're going to go ahead with this, and we will take our cue, though, from the experts and respond to proposals as we get them, and I do believe we will get a proposal.
But how can you go ahead? How can you go ahead, though, if the federal government and the advisory body have said, no, we don't think this should go ahead, and they believe no hospital will approve a treatment trial either?
Well, we're not bound by the particular foundation that we're talking about here. We don't need federal government approval for what we're talking about here. Let's not forget that this is angioplasty, and granted, it's in a different part of the anatomy, but it is something that happens on a regular basis. And again, we think if universities wish to pursue this, they'll have certainly their own ethical questions to ask and processes to have this vetted, but we believe that we can move ahead with it, and we intend to do that if we get a proposal.
But what if the key neurologist in Saskatchewan, who has stated her concerns about a treatment study, does not support the provincial plan for a treatment study? Then what?
Well, there are more than one neurologist who are looking at this, and I can tell you that they're doing some work on the diagnostics right now together with UBC research as a preliminary step towards what could become clinical trials. So it's a bit hypothetical to say what they would or wouldn't say in all of this, but I will say this, that there are others that have contacted us, experts, neurologists, doctors, researchers who are interested in the potential of clinical trials. Let's remember, this is happening in North America. This is not just happening in some of the countries where actually the treatment's available. And so we will take our cue from the research community, and we will have independent analysis of any proposals that come in, but we remain committed to funding these trials. We think in a country that has such a high incidence of MS, and in a province that has the highest incidence of MS within that country, we think there's a lot of merit in our government wanting to support clinical trials if the cue is taken from the research community. And there's questions to be answered here on either side of it, and we would like to help answer those questions.
What do you make, though, of the government, the Canadian Institute of Health researchers' position? I mean, as you know, they say that this is just too risky.
The fact of the matter is that I have constituents, and I have neighbors, and I have friends who are planning to have this procedure done in faraway places. And they are having money raised for them by their friends and their neighbors and their churches. And so I believe that it is clearly the responsibility of our government. I won't speak to the federal government. They'll make their own decisions. But of our government to react in the interests of our citizens. And we would like to help answer questions for them as well. They are getting this treatment done. I just talked to another family friend, and they are planning to make the trip to Bulgaria, and their church is raising money for them, and we should be able to answer their questions in the long term at least, or the midterm at least, whether that's wise or not wise. And in a country that has such a high incidence of MS, in a province where it exists so unfortunately in such a prevalent way, I think we should be answering those questions, and we intend to do that if the proposal comes from the research community.
Can the feds, can the Canadian Institute of Health Research stop you from proceeding here?
Well, my understanding is no, that they cannot.
Is there any fear, because there are those who are saying it is too risky, that there could be lawsuits, that, you know, if there's a treatment that is undertaken that goes wrong, that the province may be exposed to that?
Well, I think when you're talking about clinical trials, there is always going to be risks and then steps taken to mitigate those risks. And I can tell you that there are many, many people who have already stepped forward from right across the country, not just from Saskatchewan, who will say, I can't move anymore, or I'm in such pain that I would like to take this risk if there is a chance to find out if there is symptom relief, or perhaps to answer questions on the negative side so people will know. And right now those risks are being taken by people getting on planes with their family and friends and going to far away places for the procedure. And again, I just think because we have such a high prevalence, unfortunately, of the disease in this country, we should be leading and helping to answer these questions. I know what Kaihar has said. Others, frankly, from the medical establishment and experts have said to us, granted off the record, but have said we don't necessarily agree. We think there is a role for some further research and some trials and some answers to questions. And I think Saskatchewan can be a leader in this regard, and we'll do so in a measured, responsible way and take our cue from experts, but we're not changing our position.
All right, Premier Brad Wall joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.